Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is HANIQ binti FATAH. My group is from IC 120482. So today we will talk about custom is authoritative. Alright, before we go through in this topic, I would like to introducing about custom and usage, which is uruf and adat. Okay, uruf and adat is an important aspect where we live in community life. There have many difference of uruf and adat in society. Uruf and adat are not meant to complicate our life, but it play a role in regulating the way of life in society and community. In generally, custom is a tradition of the community, especially in matter related to the community life. And adat is a systematic social method that to be used regulated the value of structure of society. So that there is a difference between human and animals in adat.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Muhammad SALMAN bin Mr. ANUAR. I will talk about the definition of the uruf and adat, custom and usage. Uruf and adat are very ancient and important sources of Islamic law. As the pre-Islamic Arabs had no written documents or script, their social system were regulated by custom and their tradition. According to the available historical accounts, the Khulafa al-Rashidin retained many pre-Islamic social custom and tradition, and also adapted and established some useful non-indigenous custom. Such borrowing was quite acceptable in their eyes, for the Prophet himself had acknowledged the validity of some pre-Islamic custom that were compatible with the letter and spirits of the revelation. In Arabic, there are two terms for legal custom, uruf and adah. Uruf and adah are two technical terms of Islamic jurisprudence. Literally and technically, these terms differ, but in usage in society, they overlap each other. Now, I will talk about uruf definition. What is uruf? The term uruf, meaning to know, refer to the custom and practices of a given society, although this was not firmly included in Islamic law. The Sharia recognized custom that prevailed at the time of Muhammad SAW, but were not abrogated by the Quran or the Sunnah. Practices later innovated are also justified, since Islamic traditions in general consider good is also considered by Allah. According to some source, uruf hold as much authority as ijma and more than qiyas. Uruf is the Islamic equivalent of common law. Now, definition of adats. The word adat is derived from the Arabic word adats, the plural form of ada, meaning custom or habit is considered as synonyms with uruf, something which is commonly known or accepted. It generally refers to the result of long-standing convention, either deliberately adopted or the result of unconscious adaptation to circumstance that has been followed where practical consideration have been uppermost. For example, in Malaysia, each state's constitution empower Malay rulers as the head of Islam and Malay custom in their respective state. State Council known as Majlis Agama Islam dan Adat Istiadat Melayu, in English Council of Islam and Malay Custom, are responsible in advising the rulers as well as regulating both Islamic affairs and adats.
My name is MUKHRIZ bin SABRI, and I will talk about custom in ibadah. As we all know, custom or uruf is widely used around the world. It can be found in many places and usually can be found in the life of local society. Custom is used in different aspects of life, including marriage or munakahat, politics, muamalat, and many more. Here we will talk about the use of custom in the act of worshipping, or what we call here is ibadah. Mainly we will talk about custom that is used in Malaysia, but it also include custom in other countries, for example in Saudi Arabia. So here are the example of customs in ibadah. The first custom that we can find is in the case of ablution or wudu. This custom can be found used in Saudi Arabia, but it's also used in many other countries as well. Ablution or at-taharah or purification is done consecutively when performing ablution. When washing the limbs, it should be done continuously with each other. The first limb should not to be left right and they continue with the next limb. This means that when we perform wudu, we need to wash wudu part continuously to not let the water dry. This is used in country like Saudi Arabia because the weather there is much hotter than in other country, for example like Malaysia. Second custom can be seen in the community of people in Kedah, whereas after the death of a family member or a related person, a ceremony will be held. The ceremony known as Tahlil ceremony or Kenduri Tahlil. In this ceremony, usually an imam will be invited and he will lead the recitation of Surah Yasin and followed by the recitation of Tahlil Arwah. So the next one is a custom related to the act of devotion, which is Bazanji and Mahaban. Bazanji is a form of performing Islamic voice art in religious ceremony. The word Mahaban is derived from the Arabic word which is marhaba, which means a congratulatory or respectful greeting to welcome someone. The practice of reciting Bazanji and Marhaban has become a traditional practice for Malay community. Bazanji and Marhaban are usually done when celebrating the birth of a baby, circumcision ceremony, and during wedding. Lastly, customs that are related to ibadah is jamak prayer. Jamak prayer here should be done continuously as jamak prayer should be performed consecutively where it cannot be spaced between two prayers except for a moment. Something that is not mentioned in the estimated by Shara cannot be estimated itself. It is determined by uruf.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Nur Afiqah binti Muhammad Kamil. So I will explain and present about the third one, custom, which is custom in munakahat. We have a various race and of course many culture among the world. In this scope, I'm going to talk about custom munakahat that happen especially among the Muslim countries. Marriage happen every day. As an example, we can see in Malaysia, which is a Muslim country, there is 200,000 above Muslim couple marriage per year. And of course, every culture have different special ways to celebrate it. This is because a marriage only happen once in our lifetime. Islam does not burden its people to do anything beyond its ability. It should be understood that Islam does not reject in its entirety any customs of various races. In fact, the custom also has a space in the religion. This method says al-adah al-muhakkamah, which means custom can be established as a law or custom to determine the ruling. How come the customs is created? Custom created by humans to form an identity for a race or culture. This is very important because different ways of custom symbolize their own culture and race in every country, especially Muslim country. In the case of marriage, the Malay community also has various custom ceremonies that are practiced throughout the generation by generation until it seems to be a matter that is sectioned by religion. The next slide is types of uruf, which is custom. There is two, which is qawli and fi'li. Qawli is through the word and fi'li is through action and action. These two is divided into two more, sahih and fasid. Sahih is acceptable by Sharia and fasid, while fasid is not acceptable by Sharia. Custom that is not acceptable by Sharia is actually exist. This is usually because the culture, which was mixed by two different religions, such as Buddha and Islam. Next is Uruf Sahih. Uruf Sahih, the first one is the Merisik. Merisik practice is part of the khidbah process. Islam requires spying or investigating the girl who is to be the wife. The meaning of Merisik or khidbah in terms of religious terms means to produce a desire to marry a certain woman, and this is stated to the woman concerned or her guardian. So the next one is Walimah. The word Walimah means kenduri in Malay, introducing both of them to relatives from both parties, and the end goal is also the purpose of the wedding is encouraged by Shara to inform the community that they have been treated as husband and wife. From Anas bin Malik radhiyallahu anhu, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Do the walimah even with only one goat." So the third one is partying. Partying is allowed in Islam as long it is followed the guideline of the Shara. The fourth is wearing different culture wedding dress. It is same as long it is covering woman aura and following the Shara. Next one is Uruf Fasid, which is not allowed according to Sharia and not allowed in Islam. The first one is overcause ceremony. Walimah customs are permissible as this practice is intended to introduce brides with the title of king of a day to the public, but not allowed to be a mass wedding or overcause ceremony because this will cause wasting. The second one is fresh flour custom, which contains shiri and khurafat element. This custom is from Buddhist. The third one is berandam custom is also in Malay culture. The form of berandam is the form of making or changing the true beauty, which is strictly prohibited in Islam and it is haram. The last one is partying that include haram thing. Partying is usually happen in Arab states, which is if it is including haram thing, it will be uruf fasid.
My name is NISRINA binti Muhammad TARMIZI. So we move to our next subtopic, which is custom in mu'amalat. Mu'amalat is the one of the area in Sharia that emphasized by Islam. There's many verse of Al-Quran and hadith of Prophet Muhammad that explain regarding the law in mu'amalah, such as sale and purchase, mortgage, debt, and so on. However, there are also certain problems that are not explained clearly in this field, and it's require other sources of law such as ijtihad, qiyas, uruf, masalih mursalah, and so on in determining its law. The literal meaning of mu'amalat, which is plural of mu'amalah, is the transaction, while its technical idea is any form of mutual dealing held between the men to solve their everyday needs, especially in matter relating to trade and commerce. Mu'amalat is a social relationship which consists of various economic and non-economic activities. Basic principles that have a role in forming Sharia ruling in mu'amalah are: first is permissible as a general rule. Status of all matter other than ritual is permissible until the evidence given that a certain matter is prohibited. So next is conclusion of contract by mutual consent. Mutual consent means that the contract entered into by the parties shall be free from any element of caution, fraud, misrepresentation, or other illegal means. So next is conformity of contract with the maqasid al-sharia. So the transaction or contract entered by individual shall be accordance with the maqasid al-sharia. So next is principle of wide circulation of wealth. wealth and property should be circulated among the general public and actively transfer from one hand to another in the form of expenditure and investment. So next is the principle of transparency in commercial dealing. All financial transactions must be conducted in such a manner that all the parties are clear about, and the important facts including the term and condition of their dealings. So next is justice and fair dealing. Justice is the general principle of Sharia that needs to be observed in all Islamic transaction and contract. Here I will explain about concept of contract in muamalah. The literal meaning of akad is join or tie. It can be translated as contract. Barbati defined akad in his kitab Inayah ala Fath al-Qadri as legal relationship created by the conjunction of two declarations from which flow legal consequences with regard to the subject matter. So the essential element of an akad is, first is sirah. In sirah we have ijab, which is offer. Majalah al-Ahkam al-Adliyah defined ijab as the word of the first spoken for the making of disposition of property, and disposition are proved by it. So next is qabul, acceptance. Majalah al-Ahkam al-Adliyah defined qabul as the spoken word by the second party when forming the disposition of the property, and with it the agreement become complete. For example, when we buy something, the buyer will perform ijab, which is offer, and the purchaser will perform qabul, which is acceptance. So then it's complete. So next we go to parties to the contract. It is a condition of a valid contract that the parties possesses capacity. Capacity is a quality which make a person qualified for acquiring right and undertaking duties and responsibilities. Next is ma'aqud alay. First is subject matter. There are conditions to be taken into consideration according to Islamic jurisprudence for subject of contract. First is should exist at the exact time of contract. Second, must legally own. Third, should bring benefit or significant result for the contracting parties. And fourth, should have commercial value in the light of Sharia principle. Second is price or consideration, defined as value promised to another when making a contract. Condition for valid consideration is inexistent, mawjud, permissible, halal, valid, sahih, valuable, mutaqawwim. So that's all from me. Thank you.
In conclusion, custom is one of the sources of law that is important. The strength is proved by the propositions of the Al-Quran, As-Sunnah, and Ijma. However, custom can be used in absolute, even there is lots of certain conditions that needs to be as a source of law. Custom plays an important role in Sharia laws and leave a big impact in cleansing, prayer, marriage, and others. Nevertheless, field of mu'amalah also need to have custom as the source of law. It can be seen clearly through a lot of perspective in Qawaid Fiqh method that emphasizing the role of custom in mu'amalat. Other than that, custom leave a big impact in mu'amalat like selling and buying, wakalah, ijarah, and others. Lastly, custom leaves a big impact into the changing of law if it was practiced by the public, although the majority is little, but as long as the custom is not contradictory with the Sharia. Custom are also one of the sources of law in Islam, and because of that, custom has its own role in helping to set the expenditure of a law. That's all from us. Thank you very much for listening.